Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 37 of Trend Talks BizSec. I'm your co-host, Jon Clay, VP of Threat Intelligence here at Trend Micro. And joining me again is Greg Young, Vice President of Cybersecurity at Trend Micro. Greg, how are you?
John, great to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while because I've had some challenges with my setup here in my office and my computer not working very well. Shockingly, it was a Windows computer not working well with Teams and some others, so I've had to replace it. And I'm actually, for the first time in my career, Greg, I'm using a Mac, which has been
Wow.
kind of interesting to learning curve with that. But the other thing is obviously our audience hasn't seen this for a while, and I've gone the dark side with the beard and stuff. But I want to give the audience a little explanation. It's No Shave November. I do this every November. I don't shave. It's to raise awareness to for cancer. And I don't know if people might not be able to see. I have a little scar here because I had Mohs surgery a couple of years ago because they found some concern about some cancer, skin cancer, and so, definitely recommend all of our audience to get those checks. But, we're going to talk about compliance. And one of the compliance things in health, right, is you got to get your regular checkups and you got to get your, whether it's colon screening or in this case, skin screenings every year to make sure you stay healthy as a human. But, so you got to follow those compliance things, but we're going to talk compliance today. Any first initial thoughts around what we're talking about here, Greg?
Yeah, first a bit of a disclaimer. I've never been a big fan of some of the compliance regimes in cybersecurity. I've been highly skeptical because of their perceived low efficacy. However, suddenly compliance is really hot again. So, it was kind of, a big part of our business. GRC was one of the top line items, but suddenly it's back again. And but I think it's actually a good thing why it's hot again.
Yeah, it's always been an interesting topic to talk about when, do you do security by compliance or do you do security for, fixing the problem and getting better results? And like you said, I think over the years we got a little jaded because if you just did it to check a box and, hey, I'm compliant, I'm not really secure, but I'm compliant, so I'm good. We obviously have seen over the years that doesn't necessarily translate into better security. And so, but certainly with all of the breaches that we're starting to see and concerns and obviously a lot of regulations that have already been in place for a number of years, and we're starting to see fines being put out for organizations that get breached and they don't do a good job of securing their data or their networks, and they're being fined now. You're starting to see these boards and executive staffs inside these businesses maybe taking a little different look, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It's hot now because suddenly boards and management realize that they're being held to account for cybersecurity. It's not just plumbing anymore. The SEC regulations and things like that are definitely part of it. And they're suddenly concerned now. And this is a starting point for them. And they're, instead of just sort of looking at a report you give the audit committee that says, yes, we checked all the boxes, now they're asking questions about it. They're saying, hey, let's talk about compliance. We want to know how we are. And a really novel concept too is the posture of compliance. The idea that, what's the state of our compliance? It's not just yes, no, it's also how healthy are we? Are we close to being in trouble? And I think it's also a starting point for all this complexity that's in cybersecurity now. It's a way to start a conversation, say, hey, PCI compliance, let's talk about that. And then let's talk about this, attack surface management issue that we're looking at and what that means to this or in general. So yeah, it's CISOs are being brought into the room now to talk about it, and it's a conversation starter.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, the shift towards this risk-based approach. You talked about ASRM, attack surface risk management. We're starting to do more risk assessments and risk-associated products at Trend Micro compared to the past, which was all cybersecurity focused, right? Detect a threat, block the threat, and that was it. Now you're starting to see organizations look at their risk, identify, am I risky? How big of a risk do I have? And like you said, the complexity of the attack surface has grown so immense now that it's very difficult. So it has become a little bit more difficult to deal with that. But I think if you think about the compliance component and implementing it from a compliance perspective, you probably can get a better look at overall look at what is our posture, what is our risk posture as an organization, right? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but certainly it is getting back into favor, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think it's also in the right perspective that it's not the whole reason for being. It's a conversation starter, and there's actually questions and pushback on it. Say, yeah, yeah, we've got this NIST compliance, but I'm also concerned about this. We're compliant, but I have concerns, and that's really, I think, the proper place for it. It should be a framework where you can ignore things, and it then leads to extra work on top of that to probe further in areas that are unique to the business.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing that the board and the executive staff are worried about this, and they're wanting the better visibility about it. And then the other aspect we got to talk about is technology changes. Technology has gone so far now that, and with, especially with artificial intelligence, AI and generative AI, that we can actually build a much better model and produce a much better result and information to deliver to the boards and deliver to the CEOs and CIOs and so forth of these organizations. So they have a much better picture now of what their risk looks like that we didn't ever had before, right?
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. That's it's absolutely right. So yeah, no, it's this dealing with complexity, and it's actually turned things around now, and they've kind of gotten what they've asked for now, with CISOs wanting to have discussions with the board, and it can be uncomfortable, and you can't have the same kind of discussion you're having with a business unit that you have with the board. It's it has to be a whole different kind of language and a whole different lexicon you use.
Yeah, and like I said, we've changed a lot inside our platform. So in Vision One, for example, with our companion, which is our chat bot, you can ask it, hey, are we NIST XYZ compliant? And it'll actually come back with an answer because it's analyzing all the data points that we have across your attack surface. And then we actually then can give you ways to mitigate or to become compliant as you move forward. So the generative AI technology, I think, is going to go far for organizations, especially for the practitioners who have to actually do the work to get them compliant, because they may not know what to do. Well, now you can actually just ask the chatbot, am I compliant? If not, how do I become compliant? It'll give you those answers. That's what's crazy to me, is the technology is just fascinating and going so fast and furious that I think it's only going to get better and better.
Yeah, you mentioned two things I think are on the near horizon. So one is the assistive technology for compliance, to get to actually complete it and document it correctly. I think that's so clear that that's a path we need to go. And the second one is that discussion about dollars and the likelihood that boards have. They're concerned about, well, yes, we're at risk of ransomware, but what will be the impact of that to the business? And that's a Venn diagram overlap that a lot of CISOs aren't comfortable with. But there's a lot of great, we have so much data now that we can be helpful with. Yes, the business is going to be unique, and you need to know about that. But we know so much about our attack surface and the likelihood and what's going on in peers that you can actually have some really good data to help with, even down to saying, here's the likelihood, and getting up to that point of, what will be the impact on the business if we are hit with ransomware.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think, and this is an interesting area. We can have a whole nother session on this where we talk about qualitative assessment versus quantitative assessment and results. In the past, it's all really been qualitative, but now if we can do quantify the risk with a dollar amount, that's a huge game changer for a lot of organizations, because they, budgets are always getting looked at and are always, going to have to deal with it. And so the more you can give that kind of information to the board and to the executives, they can make a much more informed decision on moving forward with what budget needs to go where and how do we spend it and where should it go. So I think that's an interesting area as well.
I'm really excited about CRQ, which is cyber risk quantification, because there's such the data that we can pull out now is it's so opportunistic. But also, this is like the opportunities there, for example, to feed it back to an insurance provider to get a discount on your cyber insurance. It's just the possibilities here are just are so exciting.
Well, and think about, as regulators that come to you and say, "Hey, what have you done? How, what are you compliant in?" and all that kind of stuff. Now they have the capability of sharing that information and having it right there in front of them, so they can actually do these audits much more quicker, much more efficiently. All of that's just going to help things out as we move forward.
Right, right. Even automated answering of those questions the insurance provider has you doing manually today. That's just what a that's worth its weight in gold right there to me. So
yeah, no question about it. But the elephant in the room that we chatted a little bit before we started this is the new administration coming into the U.S. with President Trump coming in and talking about lowering a lot of removing a lot of the regulations that are in the U.S. area. He last time he cut tons of regulations. He's talking about even doing more and more this year when he comes in. So are we going to see less regulation or more regulation moving forward? I mean, the U.S. for sure. I think you're going to see less regulation over the next 4 years. But how will that impact this type of thing? Are we going to see weaker regulations and no more fines and so forth? I don't know. I mean, I think we'll see a little bit of change, but I'm not sure how much.
Yeah, cybersecurity is actually quite unregulated in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like we have very few regulations to go with. On the other hand, there's the other side of the coin. People would argue. I've got a fellow I know named Mike Doherty who ran a cancer clinic to keep on with your November theme. And he ran afoul of the FTC, according to his book and my belief, unfairly. So there's that kind of, there's so many organizations who dip into cybersecurity and could punish you. However, I think our industry, we don't have enough regulations right now, especially around breach disclosures. So hopefully that remains untouched because I think we've made some great progress, especially with the SEC there. I think there's really powerful stuff to protect people. And often it's not a market-driven force that if you're a patient of a hospital and your data is breached, it's not like you can go to a different hospital and take your business elsewhere like you can with other sort of markets that are regulated. So I think there's some wrinkles there. But
yeah, I think a lot of people, the concern is, will the private industry regulate themselves versus being told to do regulation, right? So, and as you and I both know over the years, the private industries don't necessarily regulate themselves very well.
No,
it's all about profit. It's all about going fast and furious. I mean, technology, obviously we're in technology. We've been in technology and it's going fast and furious. And you don't want to stifle that innovation aspect with too much regulation. But the good news, like you said, in technology and our industry hasn't been regulated much over the years. So we've been able to move pretty fast and pretty quickly, but certainly there are some challenges as we move forward, whether it's, personal information, security, AI and the safety of AI moving forward. There's a lot of discussion around that, and how do we regulate the innovation in AI, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for the most part, this shift towards more compliance, I think is probably a good thing if it's done right, and it can be done. And I think that's where technology is going to allow us to do it better than we've ever done before.
Yeah, and all of our colleagues who run any sort of large security or security in a large company know that you're a multinational, so you have GDPR, you have all of these international schemes that you still have to comply with as well.
Right.
So that's the reality. So no matter what happens in any specific country, I think that there's going to be always pulls to go in other directions. The technology side I'm excited about is helping to, if we can't harmonize that, that's a problem I don't think we'll ever get to, but instead let's lower my burden through automation, being able to check and complete reports. Yeah.
So if you were to talk to a couple of CISOs now, Greg, what would be your top recommendations around compliance and dealing with compliancy and moving forward? What would you recommend they do?
I think it's right now is start to look at the options coming up that are going to be truly revolutionary for helping you achieve compliance better. I think we haven't been there because of our, as an industry, because of the limited views and attack surface. That's been, this blind spot. We're over focused on the threat. But this, I think, a side benefit of attack surface management is going to be that it's going to help us with compliance. Part of that's going to be understanding the data better. That's been another weakness that we haven't had. But I think the technology that we've got right now in hand and the fruits we can reap from that in the very short term are going to be a big deal. So avoid the hype right now. I haven't, seen anything on the shelves today that is revolutionary, but I know there's things cooking right now that are going to be exciting for both the quantitative and the general compliance side.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would recommend definitely look and talk to your security vendors and your GRC vendors to find out what their roadmaps look like. Because again, I said generative AI and that whole AI technology, there's lots of new functionality that's coming down the pipe if it's not already there. So talk to your vendors and really try to get them to help them to understand where they're going, how they're getting there, and how they can bring you along with them to partner with them to do a much better job moving forward. So any last thoughts?
Beware of compliance washing or AI washing as you do those investigations. That's a great advice you give. I think also that the only way this gets fixed is not through more complex things. It's going to be through leveraging the telemetry and the assistive AI that's available.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, well, listen, everybody, thanks for joining us on episode 37 of Trend Talks BizSec. Greg and I will definitely be back in the next couple of weeks to talk about another topic, but feel free to give us a like and even give a comment if there's a topic you want us to cover in the future. We'd be happy to take a comment about that, and we'll probably do it in the future, one of the future episodes. But hey, Greg, great discussion today. Thanks for having us. We'll be back shortly with another episode. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Always thought-provoking. Thanks, John.
Yeah, always. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.